Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals. Today, we are going to be talking about an update to the Big Beautiful Bill, or more importantly, the Short Act and the HPA within. But before we get into all of that, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and it does help us quite a bit. And go ahead and comment your favorite 1100 plus page bill in the comments down below. To get you guys up to speed, if you're not familiar with the Big Beautiful Bill or the HPA or the Short Act, the Big Beautiful Bill is essentially a omnibus spending budgetary bill, but within that are the HPA, the Hearing Protection Act, which is a act that removes all suppressors from the NFA, meaning that you would no longer need to file paperwork, give fingerprints, passport photos, pay the $200 tax stamp, all of that sort of thing. It would remove suppressors from the NFA and use them as a 4473 item. So you would still need to go through a background check if you were buying one from your local gun stop, but you would no longer need to file any of that NFA paperwork, trust paperwork, or whatever else it might be for your suppressors that you currently have to do. The Short Act, very similarly, does the same type of thing, but for short-barreled rifles. So SBRs or anything that's under 16 inches with a stock attached, those would be completely removed from the NFA, along with short-barreled shotguns and AOWs, I believe, which is a much more complex term, but essentially that would also be removed from the NFA, so you would not need to do a $200 tax stamp, no extended waiting period, no paperwork, no fingerprints. All of that sort of stuff would be done away with, meaning that companies can now sell you directly shorter than 16-inch barrels with a stock attached, or a lot of specialty firearms would again no longer be attached to that NFA. To complicate matters a little bit, the Short Act was removed from the House bill, but when it was sent to the Senate, where it is currently sitting, one senator added the short bill back in, so now we have the short bill and the HPA within the Big Beautiful Bill that the Senate is going to be voting on in the next couple weeks. Now, the way that this works is unfortunately more complicated. Just because both the Short and HPA are currently in the Big Beautiful Bill doesn't mean that something might change in the interim, because after it passes the Senate, if it passes the Senate, then it has to go back to the House. So they have to re-vote on the bill because it was amended in the Senate. And then after that, it will eventually head to President Trump's desk, where he's already said that he would sign it in its current form, if it stays in its current form, which again, everything is kind of in flux, but this is about as close as we have ever been to getting a huge win in the Second Amendment for the last several decades at least. Now, we've already talked a little bit on what the HPA would do for the suppressor market. If you remove that NFA restriction from suppressors, it's going to be a gold rush in that field for sure. People are going to be rushing out, buying a ton, no waiting period. What used to be Form 1 kits would essentially just be like an 80% kit that you can build in your own home. You can manufacture, 3D print your own suppressors in the privacy of your own home, as long as you're in a state that allows that sort of thing with firearms. It would be the same with suppressors. However, if you're in a restricted state where they already ban suppressors, and I think it's something like 16 states are already going to ban suppressors if the HPA passes, so it kind of depends upon where you live. If you're in a free state, it should remove all of those restrictions. But with the Short Act, in certain segments, this is actually going to have a bigger impact than the HPA, because there are a lot of firearms that are essentially, by their design, short-barreled rifles, and then there's a way to kind of get a workaround with the, braces or whatever it might be. Think all of your PDWs, MP5s, anything that's like sub-gun-like, where you see ugly, hideous 16-inch versions. Well, you would now no longer need to see those whatsoever. A lot of the ultra-cool sub-guns, PDWs, and short-barreled shotguns, of course, as well, the demand for those would spike overnight, just like it would for suppressors. If you remove that NFA restriction, there's no more paperwork on them, so you can go get a MP5 with a stock on it tomorrow and just go purchase it just like you would any other firearm without issue. And I think that that's going to be a huge boon for very specific types of firearms. For instance, short-barreled shotguns, you basically never see them, but with this passing, you would finally start to see 14-inch, 12-inch, 10-inch shotguns, sawed-off shotguns, right? Whatever it might be. Whereas there's a lot of workarounds in the market right now where you might have a shorter barrel, but then you just have like that really stubby grip so that it technically constitutes a firearm or a handgun, not a short-barreled shotgun, because that would be illegal or require a tax stamp. So there's a lot of workaround firearms that would probably cease to exist in their current form, but you would finally get the versions that you would actually want rather than buying the workaround. Or you can throw all your pistol braces in the trash unless, again, you live in a state that still doesn't allow SBRs in the first place. We've talked about how the market is currently in a little bit of a downturn. We see a lot of the players exiting the market as of right now. just due to a downturn in sales. Usually when there's a red president, gun sales go down, there's less panic buying, which the panic buying isn't necessarily a good thing, but it's definitely good for these companies, bottom line. Now, if the Short Act passes, if the HPA passes, this is going to be a huge boon for very specific sectors of the industry, and these companies that are struggling financially need to take advantage of that, which means spinning up as soon as possible. If you're a company that's currently facing some sort of financial struggle, it is absolutely your imperative to take advantage of this situation as quickly as possible. So whether that is getting into the suppressor market, which is very quickly going to sell out and explode, or whether that's diverging into the formerly SBR territories with chassis guns, sub guns, just generic short-barreled rifles, or whatever it might be, you should hopefully already be spun up or be able to pivot in that direction as soon as possible, because that's going to create a whole new avenue of cash flow for a lot of these companies that desperately need it. And this is going to be a big benefit for people that actually have manufacturing capability rather than having to wait on an OEM. If you can just start making things basically right away or as soon as possible, that's going to give you an edge over other companies in the market. The last area where this may shake things up a little bit is when it comes to imports, because I'm pretty sure the ATF doesn't like SBR imports and suppressor imports, but if they're removed from the NFA and they are treated like any other firearm, would that open up new avenues for importation of these suppressors and short-barreled rifles from outside of the US and create some additional supply for the demand that is surely going to arise? Now, I'm not sure if that's actually going to change things according to the ATF, because the ATF is not known for doing cool things for American citizens. Quite the opposite, in fact. But if we could get some interesting foreign-made suppressors that are hard to come by, or people just like them because they're aesthetically cool and they want to clone a build that they saw in some movie somewhere, all that sort of thing could be a possibility, along with the importation of more interesting firearms. Again, if they're not tied to the NFA, is there a reason to restrict their importation? That's all up to the ATF, but I'm saying that this is a possibility that could happen. You could see more interesting firearms and possibly even suppressors get imported into the US, though that is just wild speculation on my part. Would be cool if it happened. Is it going to? Probably not. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below, gentlemen. If you think that the big beautiful bill will pass with the HPA and Short Act intact. If it does, it will be the greatest Second Amendment win in our lifetime, most likely. Or if you believe that nothing ever happens, and so nothing will happen. But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.